It's time and we have a quorum. We will now proceed with meeting. Can I invite Mr. Lincoln Leung and those accompanying him to come into the room, please? Ms. Mo, do you wish to ask questions?
First
of all, I would like to welcome all of you to the hearing of the Select Committee to inquire into the background of and reasons for the delay of the construction of the Hong Kong section of the Guangzhou-Shenzhen-Hong Kong Express Rail Link. This is the 8th hearing. Giving evidence today, we have Mr. Lincoln Leung, the Chief Executive of the MTRCL. Thank you, Mr. Leung, for coming to our hearing again to assist our work. The Select Committee has agreed to Mr. Leung's request for persons to accompany him. Those accompanying Mr. Leung are Mr. David Bateson, retained legal advisor of the MTRCL. Principal legal advisor of the MTRCL, Mr. Bao Wei-ming, and Principal Corporate Affairs Consultant Advisor of the MTRCL, Ms. Wong Mei-kei, and also Mr. Mkawa, Coordination Manager of the XRL of the Hong Kong of the MTRCL. If I may remind those accompanying Mr. Leung, you may not address the Select Committee. If I may remind the witness that the Select Committee has not been given powers under the Legislative Council Powers and Privileges Ordinance Cap 382 in conducting our business. Therefore, the witness is not afforded the privilege offered by Cap 382. In the course of inquiry, in accordance with Section 18 of Cap 382, for key questions asked at the hearing, if false answers are given deliberately or forged documents are provided, then it is an attempt to deceive the Select Committee, and it is a criminal offense. I believe the witness will fully assist the work of the committee. And we have drawn up our practice and procedures. Please take note of the following. The privileges under Cap 382 for members apply only to the inquiry procedure. All members, including non-Select Committee members, should avoid giving their comments in relation to the hearing outside the hearing. If I may also take this opportunity to remind those in the public gallery that you are not protected, and also the media who are present, you are not protected by Cap 382 as you disclose evidence given in the hearing, outside the hearing. So if necessary, those in the public gallery and the media may wish to seek legal advice on their legal liabilities. Later on in the process and the proceedings, I will require the witness to confirm that he has submitted certain documents to the Select Committee, and these documents will then become part of the evidence of the Select Committee. And for documents that have been considered by the Select Committee to be made public, these will be uploaded to the LegCo website for public inspection. This is now time, and we have a quorum. I declare the hearing open. Mr. Lincoln Leung, on the 14th of August 2015, the MTRCL submitted a document to the clerk to the Select Committee. That is MTR4. Do you now formally produce this document to the Select Committee as evidence? Yes. Mr. Leung, I learned from the clerk that you have asked to make an opening statement before the inquiry starts. Is that correct? Yes. Please start then. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Last time, after I gave evidence to members, I understand members would like to find out more. I would try my best to answer questions, but my apologies. As you know, my Chinese is not so good, so that I could accurately express my views. So like last time, I will continue to give evidence in English. Mr. Leung, it is your prerogative. Actually, you speak very good Chinese. So, Mr. Leung, if you don't mind if I use Chinese, because I've been using Chinese all along. No, I don't mind at all, Mr. Chairman. Now, can I now say something in English? Yes, please.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to provide information to the Select Committee on the Express Rail Link project. I would start off with an update on progress of the project. Subsequent to the Select Committee hearing on 15th of July, we have provided supplementary information requested by the Select Committee to the best of our ability. To address members' concerns, the supplementary information covers a wide range of issues, including project management and monitoring, as well as details of the delay recovery measures. With the continuous efforts of our projects team, I am pleased to report to members that as of today, the overall completion progress of the Express Rail Link project is 74%. We have made significant progress in a number of key areas. The 25-kilometer twin-track underground tunnels are over 99% bored through, with only approximately 100 meters left to go. It is expected that full tunnel breakthrough will be achieved before the end of the year. The structural works for all 14 buildings in Saigon stabling sidings and emergency rescue siding have been completed, and the architectural builders' works are progressing steadily. Progress has also been made at the West Kowloon terminus. By adopting blasting in parallel with mechanical methods, the overall excavation of the terminus is 95% complete, while 63% of the concrete structure has been cast. The pace of steelwork fabrication and erection has also been improving. For the rooftop structures, fabrication of all temporary steel has been completed, while fabrication of the permanent steel is 61% complete. The on-site erection of both is now well underway. The electrical and mechanical, or E&M works, are also making good progress, with overall completion at 50%. About 75% of the track areas are available for overhead line installation and track laying, with half the tracks now laid. At West Kowloon Terminus, E&M contractors now have access to about 95,000 square meters of workspace, and building services installation has commenced in the platform areas on level B4. As you're aware, the Express Rail Link is a large, complex, and challenging project. It is the world's first all-underground high-speed railway project, which includes a fully underground terminus in the heart of the city at West Kowloon. The West Kowloon terminus site occupies 11 hectares of reclaimed land. It is bounded by Kowloon Station to the west, Austin Station to the east, and the West Kowloon Cultural District to the south. The terminus is the largest deep excavation undertaking ever carried out in Hong Kong. The presence of operating railway lines, high-rise buildings, and busy main roads nearby adds to the complexity of the engineering challenges. The project also involves 25 kilometers of twin-track underground tunnels connecting West Kowloon Terminus with the boundary between Hong Kong and Shenzhen. The degree of engineering difficulty is significant. As previously reported, the key causes of the delay in the construction of the Express Rail Link include tunnel boring machine issues, the fast-track front end of the project, and late site possessions. Furthermore, unfavorable ground conditions, such as higher than expected rockhead levels, weak seams, and the presence of cobbles and boulders, have also been a significant cause of delay. At the same time, overall labor shortage of about 20% has significantly impacted the 5 railway projects which were being constructed concurrently, including the Express Rail Link. Since the commencement of construction, work sites have experienced difficulties in filling vacancies across all skill sets. As mentioned in the second report by the Independent Board Committee, a shortage of workers and supervisors has posed significant challenges to the construction program of the Express Rail Link. Despite these challenges, we have taken our role and responsibility as the project manager very seriously. The corporation has all along acted in accordance with the entrustment agreements, which require us to oversee the design, construction, and commissioning of the project. To this end, we have used our best endeavours to bring the project forward, and at the same time provide regular updates and progress reports to the government, as well as to the Legislative Subcommittee on matters relating to railways. While there are still challenges in the remaining construction works, as the project manager, we continue to use our best endeavours to deliver the project according to the revised timetable. We have submitted the latest estimate of the cost to complete and programme to complete to government at the end of June. Government has since requested additional information, which we have provided accordingly. Please be assured that the corporation and government share the same objective of delivering the project as quickly as possible in the most cost-effective manner. Although the project may not have progressed as originally planned, more than 7,000 women and men are working hard day and night to push it forward. The MTR Corporation remains fully focused on the important task of delivering a world-class high-speed rail to support Hong Kong's continued development and growth. Thank you very much, Chairman and members.
Yes, Mr. Leung, thank you. Do you formally, 對唔住，梁生，你而家係咪正式
Mr. Leung, thank you. Do you now formally produce this opening statement as evidence to the Select Committee?
我提
If I may remind members, in accordance with the practice procedures of the Select Committee, paragraph 15, during an open hearing, members may only ask questions to ascertain facts in relation to the scope of work of the Select Committee. Members should refrain from expressing their views or making a statement in the hearing. In accordance with paragraph 16E of the practice procedures, I will determine if a question is or certain evidence is related to the scope of work of the Select Committee. In accordance with paragraph 16F of the practice and procedures, members may ask short follow-up questions and ask for further information in relation to the original question. They may also seek clarifications of the original question. As the chairman, I have the power to determine whether a question is a follow-up question and whether it should be allowed. Every member will have 10 minutes to ask questions and for the witness to give answers. The member, of course, we have only just one witness today, and so members may direct questions to this witness. Now, I will formally start the hearing. To make the most of the time available, members, please be concise and specific in your questions, and then the witness must also give specific and concrete answers. Please do not waste time. So we'll now start with questions, 10 minutes for each member's questions and answers. Dr. Loy Kwok. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a number of questions. The first one is in relation to the earlier estimates of the project cost of XRL. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask Mr. Leung this. Now, the independent expert panel report mentioned that on the 8th of April 2009, the MTRCL estimated the project cost to be $95 billion, but then on the 16th of January 2010, the final revised estimate of the entrustment project was $65 billion. It's a substantial difference. So, Mr. Chairman, may I find out from this hearing from Mr. Leung, why is it that over just a short space of time, 8th of April 2009 and then 16th of January 2010, over this short space of time, how come there is such a significant decrease in the project estimate by $30 billion? Is it because in the second entrustment agreement it is stated that in relation to risk assessment, the MTRCL is therefore daring to be so aggressive in revising the estimate substantially down from the first estimate, or are there any other reasons? Dr. Low, on the cost estimate, project estimate, and the risk assessment, what is the link? Is there a link there? Well, of course, Mr. Leung may explain the difference with the knowledge he has. But what I want to find out is, this revised estimate, is it aggressive? And is aggressive, is it because of the way the risk assessments or risks are undertaken under the contract? Maybe I can ask my second question on risk. Mr. Leung was the former chief financial officer of the MTRCL. Have you done any analysis? Now, this is the service concession approach adopted for this project. So the MTRCL is in charge of the construction of the project, and the government will pay the cost. So in terms of risks undertaking, is there any estimate in relation to risks under the service concession approach?
Honourable Member for that question. Firstly, on the cost estimate, as members are aware, there were many experts involved at the initial stages in 2008 and 2009 and 2010 in advising on different aspects of costs, experts that were appointed by government and ourselves. The migration of the cost estimates are well highlighted in the IEP report. In fact, it's on page 61 of their report. As the Honourable Member mentioned, back in April of 2009, there was a very initial estimate that was close to 95 billion Hong Kong dollars. However, as well also highlighted in the IEP report, from April to September of 2009, there was reduction in scope of the project. As members are aware, reduction in scope would also bring about reduction in cost and cost estimate. Those reduction in scope, and this is highlighted on page 62 of the government's IEP report, includes a reduction in the number of tunnel boring machines from 6 to 9. It includes a deletion of platform screen doors. It includes a change of the vent building to an emergency access point. These reductions in scope allow for a reduction of that cost estimate down to $73.9 billion, as highlighted in the IEP report. At the same time, government have their own independent assessment of costs. They had their Jacobs, as I understand, being their advisor on the cost to complete. What I would further like to highlight, and this is well highlighted in the IEP report as well, is that subsequent to the tendering of all contracts, in fact, the contracts came in at a much lower amount than the original estimate. So it's highlighted on paragraph 331. Indeed, of the 49 contracts that were investigated and reviewed by the IEP, those 49 contracts came in at an amount of $13.7 billion, below the original estimates that were done back in 2009 and early 2010. Thank you, Chairman.
Dr. Loy Kwok. Chairman, it seems in Mr. Leung's reply, he didn't mention anything in relation to the sharing of risks, whether there had been any change that led to an aggressive revision of the estimate. And according to Mr. Leung, after the tendering of contracts, the estimates were revised because of the scope of projects being reduced. So my follow-up question is this. Now, if the estimate was revised because of change in the scope of project, then according to Mr. Leung's reply just now, it seems that there wasn't a substantial change in the way the estimate was prepared. But because of the significant cost overrun that we see now, I'd like to know what went wrong in managing the costs leading to such a significant cost overrun. Dr. Loy Kwok, I think in relation to cost overrun, this is not within the scope of investigation by the Select Committee. If you say that the cost overrun had to do with the estimate prepared in April 2009, then you could put this question. But as for the general issues relating to cost overrun, is not part of our scope of investigation. Perhaps I'll put the question in another way. I'll be more specific. Now, of the 40-odd contracts in the XRL Hong Kong section project, how many of them could not commence in time? And in that case, accordingly, the completion dates will have to be revised. And would it be the reason why so many contracts are experiencing delays? Mr. Leung.
Honourable Member, thank you for that question. Firstly, as members are aware, the Express Rail Link is a very large and very complex project, as we have highlighted before. Difficulties encountered during construction would be inevitable for a project of this nature. And of course, when the project team comes across these difficulties, they do their utmost to overcome delays. There are a number of many interfaces between contracts in the Express Rail Link. Some of these interfaces are well highlighted in the IEP and the IBC reports. These interfaces may result in certain contracts being perhaps slightly later tendered out than originally estimated. But the team, as always in the professional manner, would use their utmost to catch up the original schedule by using delay recovery measures and other measures.
Dr. Loy Kwok. Chairman, I'd like to ask a follow-up question. It has to do with the delay. In terms of risk assessment, I want to know risk management. I want to know whether it has been done adequately. Now, there are two types of risk management. One is qualitative, the other is quantitative. According to the papers provided by the MTRCL, the MTRCL in the past adopted a qualitative approach in risk management, including the XRL Hong Kong section. That is in relation to risk assessment, risk management. So would Mr. Leung reconsider whether between qualitative and quantitative it was appropriate to choose a qualitative management model, or if a quantitative model had been adopted, would it help management?
Question. The honourable member is absolutely correct to say that generally there are two ways of assessing risk. One is a qualitative and the other is a quantitative. In terms of looking at schedule risk, timetable risk, MTR has historically used a qualitative approach. This approach is in line with our project management systems. Now, this project management system is a system that was reviewed by a number of experts back in 2008 and 2009. And in fact, those experts, both employed by government and MTR, have noted the robustness and the good control and the excellence of those of the project management system, which uses a qualitative assessment for the program. I would also add, as highlighted in my written response to a similar question from the last Select Committee meeting, that from a cost to complete perspective, we do use a quantitative approach. So we have historically used a qualitative approach in line with our project management systems for schedule, for timetable, and a quantitative approach for costs.
Dr. Low. Now, on project management, another important aspect is this. In terms of the senior management's approach to manpower. Now, apart from the XRL project, there are a number of construction projects going on, and the MTRCL is in charge of the 5 construction projects. It is the project controller or the director, projects director. So there may be a change in manpower, but the MTRCL is the project director of a number of projects. Do you consider the workload to be too heavy? That is one project manager to oversee 5 projects. In terms of supervision, risk management, would a sharing of workload minimize delay? I mean, was there adequate professional support?
MTR, we have a very professional project management team. In fact, today that team has around 3,000 colleagues. Each of the projects that we're undertaking is controlled and managed by a separate team. So there is a separate project manager for each of the new rail projects, including the Express Rail Link. Those project managers, of course, report to the project director. I truly believe that we have not just a very professional, highly qualified project management team in our projects division, but they are industrious. They seek solutions to issues when they arise, and it is a very professional team. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, I think the question, sorry, 個問題呢
I think the question.
Chairman, in assessing the project management systems, I think the IBC also looked at this matter, and they commented that the project management team is of a highly professional and have done their best to catch up with schedule delays whenever those issues arose.
係答唔答到你問題？
Has your question been answered? Yes. I'd like to ask a final question, Chairman. Just now I asked about the MTRCL senior management, on risk management, on the progress of work and delays. Now, at another level, in relation to contractors, now in your experience, Mr. Leung, in relation to contractors undertaking MTRCL projects, do you think that they were competent in undertaking these projects and in managing and supervising the projects? Do you think that this is adequate?
Share the same objective as the contractors. The contractors have the same objective to complete this project as quickly as possible. There is, as highlighted in the IBC report, very good and significant project management over these contractors. So the contractors and ourselves have and share the same objective.
Well, so much from me, Chairman, for the time being. Chairman. Mr. Frankie Yick. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Leung, once again for attending our hearing. Well, I'm referring to the first IBC report. Now, it is said that the project team had withheld information submitted to the Highways Department, and according to the statement, although the MTRCL had provided information according to the mechanism, the information was not provided in time. So I have a number of questions in relation to the IBC report and Mr. Chan from Highways Department highlighting the issues with the MTRCL. First of all, I'd like to know Mr. Leung's response. And secondly, I'd like to know the reasons for such issues to arise. Has it to do with any inadequacy or errors from MTRCL? And also, according to the first report of the IBC, some information had been withheld. Can you tell us what information had been withheld and what projects were involved? And finally, do you think the MTRCL had provided information to the Highways Department in time and appropriately? And was it because of the delay that the MTRCL had decided to submit partial information to the Highways Department? And would you agree that there had been adequate communication between the MTRCL and the government, and that the delay had nothing to do with the MTRCL?
Thank you, Honourable Member. Firstly, I would start by saying that there was full disclosure of all information to government, the Rail Development Office, and other departments. This is well highlighted, I believe, both in the IBC and the IEP report. And I also believe that when Mr. KK Lau and Mr. Henry Chang were giving evidence, they also said that whenever our Rail Development Office asked for information or documents from MTR, MTR would provide the information or documents to them. This full disclosure is, I believe, well communicated or well highlighted in the reports by the Independent Board Committee of MTR, as well as the Independent Expert Panel, IEP, from government. I think the IBC report goes on in the same report that the Honourable Member mentioned to say that government, RDO and MTR worked in a collaborative and cooperative manner. I understand, and is highlighted in the first IBC report, the information which Mr. KK Lau and Mr. Henry Chang was referring to may be information relating to events in November of 2013. Not forgetting, at that period, our projects director, our projects team, was still trying to get further information from the contractor of one key project. This is contract number 810A, to understand in full the timetable for their activities. Without having that understanding and that information from the contractor, it is very difficult to, it would be inappropriate to speculate at that time. So I believe that the projects team at that time was really waiting for the final timetable from the 810A contractor, which was only available in early 2014. So in summary, Chairman, my view is that there was, and this is supported by the IBC and the IEP report, disclosure was in accordance with the entrustment agreement. The disclosure was in a timely manner, and there was adequate disclosure.
主席，我聽咗梁生嘅講法，咁你就歸咎咗喺一。
So I heard what Ms. Leung said. You just pinned it down to one project because there wasn't enough assessment. That's why you withheld certain information. But if you told us that you worked closely with the government, if that's the case, I don't see why you couldn't lay bare such issues as that will avoid any misunderstanding, because there is now an allegation that you did not provide adequate information, as if you were trying to cover up anything.
At no time was there any intent or any thinking of hiding or withholding any information from any parties. There was significant disclosure of information, as well as many meetings between government, representatives of government, MTR, as well as the so-called M&V consultant, Jacobs. As members are aware, Jacobs had undertaken over 250 audits in that period. So there was constant exchange of information as well as disclosure. As I mentioned, as highlighted in the IBC report, there was a collaborative and cooperative manner was taken in the discussions between government and MTR to resolve the problems that were coming up in the project. So this was working together to resolve the problems coming up. We take our responsibility very seriously under the entrustment agreement, and we have acted, I believe, in accordance with our obligations under the entrustment agreement. Once again, the matter which the Honourable Member mentioned relating to November 2013 was at a time when we were still, or MTR, as highlighted in the IBC report, was still awaiting a schedule, a timetable from the 810A contractor to see whether this so-called minimum operating approach was feasible or not. Thank you, Chairman.
主席，我就聽到梁生就
Mr. Leung, well, said, Mr. Chairman, that there was no intention to cover up anything in response to my first question. Now, my second question is still related to such doubts. We know this is a complex project. We know that. But there's criticism there's no integrated master plan. There are over 40 contracts under the project with individual commencement and completion dates. But because of delays, some projects that follow from earlier projects have to commence late as well. But then there's no revision of the completion date. And on the part of the government in supervising the works, there's no master plan. So the government cannot see the critical path to see how far it's affected. In terms of project management, itself is a problem. But then we learned in the last hearing that within the MTRCL, actually there is a so-called master plan, but it's not shared with the government. That's what I heard. If I heard it wrong, Mr. Chairman, please, I stand to be corrected. So my question is this. If there is such a master plan, how come you didn't share it with the relevant supervising government departments so there could be better communication? Again, is that cover up intentionally?
As the Honourable Member had mentioned, there is such an integrated master plan, and that integrated master plan is updated on a periodic basis and also updated using the so-called P6 Primavera software format. This is in accordance with the MTR project management approach. The reporting, on the member's question on reporting to government, there was, as I mentioned, and continues to be, very regular reporting to government. In fact, the monthly reports, or the reports going to government, many of them stretch over 200 pages. There was a lot of information in those reports.
So my question is, for this integrated master plan, well, this is an immense project. Of course, there are many different areas covered. Let's say, is it the case that, say, for the total 100 items or so, they are all in the integrated master plan? If that's the case, for this integrated master plan, is it only in the knowledge of the MTRCL? Was the government aware of the existence of this integrated master plan?
Master program. And in fact, in addition to the integrated master program, we have this thing called track-related installation program, which also supplements the integrated master program to look at, amongst other things, the installation of electrical and mechanical systems once or at the time the civil works are completed. Once again, as I mentioned, there was regular reporting to government that included over 200 pages of reports on contracts as well as on cost and other aspects. Those reports were very much on a very regular basis.
I'm not talking
about reporting. I'm saying if there is this plan, is it something in existence? This is a plan in existence. Does the government have this plan as well? Does the government have this integrated master plan? Did you give it to the government?
I'm not in a position to answer that question. I'll have to revert to you on that. What we're very clear of is the reporting on the regular basis that has been given to government, these 200-plus page reports, which looks at and talks about the overall program as well as individual contracts as well as the cost aspects.
Well, please check and
let us know. Well, reporting is one thing. This is, if it's an integrated plan, I want to know whether the government's got it. Did you give it to the government? I'm not talking about reporting. Reporting is on what you have done in accordance with the plan. But what about the plan itself, the integrated plan itself? Does the government have a copy so he could then check it against your report? That's very important. Can you please let us know afterwards?
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman. I still have one question. Mr. Leung, in your opening statement today, paragraph 9, you, actually the first time when you came to the hearing, you stressed in your document that there's a labor shortage leading to problems. Here, I would like to say it again. Well, Dr. Low Wai Kwok must remember that in November 2013 at our panel meeting, we questioned whether you tackled the labor shortage problems because that could be one of the reasons of the delay. But at the time, the colleagues who attended meetings stressed again that you were not affected by labor shortage. I remember Mr. Wong Kok Heng, before he left the meeting room, he said that he highly commended the MTRCL for taking forward this project under such difficult circumstances. He even called you a role model. But now, from MTRCL's documents, we see time and again that labor shortage impacted your projects. So at the time, was there any intention to cover up anything again? How come you would not own up at the time that you were affected by labor shortage?
I was not at the particular meetings that the honourable member mentioned. However, the shortage of labour is a situation, as highlighted by a number of parties, that pertains across the whole construction industry. In fact, I think in the IEP report, there was a comment with regards to the labour situation. And that comment is that even back in July 2013, the president of the Hong Kong Construction Association has identified in a survey of his organization that a vacancy rate, a shortage rate of 15% is prevalent across the industry, which equates at that time to 10,000 workers. So I would say that the shortage of labor is an issue that has impacted both the program as well as, importantly, the cost of the express rail link. Once again, there's never any intent to withhold any information from anyone. I think this labor shortage situation is well known in the market. We have, as a result of this labor shortage situation, done quite a bit to try to encourage more workers to either join the industry or to workers to come back into the industry. These include participation in job fairs. This includes working with relevant government bureaus. This includes enhancing the on-site situation for our construction colleagues, which have aspects like life insurance being provided, health checks, etc. So we have done what we can to try to encourage more people to come in to the construction workforce.
主席，我當然明白梁生講乜嘢。
I fully follow what Mr. Leung was saying. At the time, we thought labor shortage could have been a problem. That's why Mr. Wong Kok-heng and I repeatedly asked the question. But then in November 2013, you still would not admit that you were affected. Was it because that, well, perhaps it's not right to ask you because you weren't at the meeting. But anyway, were you worried that members might ask if that could lead to delays, so you try to avoid the question? But of course, in 2013, everything was reviewed. So why didn't you own up to it earlier?
Again, question. I think we have actually been quite open about the shortage of labor and the impact of labor shortage on our projects, including the Express Rail Link. In fact, I have in front of me, this is a letter from Transport and Housing Bureau to the Secretary General of the Legislative Council Secretariat of 22nd of January 2014. This must be in reference to the meeting on the 22nd of November 2013. And in this, in the annex to that letter, it is noted that, and I quote, while the XRL project requires around 10,000 construction workers and technical professional staff, contractors have so far employed around 8,500. And it gives a breakdown of the shortage of 1,500. So I think there has been regular and full disclosure of the challenges which we were facing in labor shortage. We do what we can to overcome those challenges, Chairman, and I mentioned some of the items that we have taken to try to overcome those challenges.
Oh, okay.
Next, Mr. Michael Tian. Well, Chairman, basically, I'd like to follow up on the conversation I had with Mr. Leung. The conversations, one lasted 12 minutes, the other lasted 5 minutes. I couldn't get anything out of Mr. Leung because he is a very smart person. But I want to clarify some matters. In 2009, when the MTRCL reached an agreement with the government that with a budget of $65 billion, the XRL project could be completed in 5 years' time, I asked whether it was overly optimistic. And Mr. Leung last time said that after doing calculations, he thought that it would be doable. And ultimately, it was known that it had to do with insufficient site investigation. So why would you still say that you building the XRL in 5 years' time was still doable? And at that time,
number of professional third parties in coming up with that program. There was an agreement, and based on the work done, there was an assessment done, which was the schedule, the original program, blah, 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 blah. Okay.
So in paragraph 46 of your statement, you mention that for the site investigation at West Kowloon Terminus, drill holes were spaced on average 14.4 meters apart, which is in line with the norm or the standards. However, my question is this. In 2009, when you agreed with the government on the schedule and the budget, and when you applied for funding with electrical in 2010, in fact, all along the Jordan Road and the Golf Club, there had not been any site investigation at all. And according to my record, for the 14.4 meters apart drill holes boards, it was done in March 2010, and there was in relation to the golf driving range. Now, my question is this: why is it that even before holes were drilled, the MTRCL was already aware of the outcome of the site investigation, and in fact, throughout Jordan Road, because of difficulty in closing down the road, no site investigation was ever conducted. And now we understand that it's because the retaining wall had to be built, and that the granite would have to be excavated. And in the beginning of 2009, no such investigation was ever done. And yet it was claimed that the investigation had been done, but that only happened after funding had been sought. My question is, in relation to the time when the agreement was reached with the government, with a budget of $60 or $70 billion, that the XRL project could be completed in 5 years' time, Mr. Leung said that there was a lot of work done.
The agreement between you and government on the time frame and the expenses.
Well, Mr. Michael Tian, please use either Chinese or English for record purpose, and it would be difficult for the interpreters. So should I stick to one language only? I think I'd be better express myself in both languages, but anyway, I'll try my best. Please do. Mr. Leung. I need to make this clear. Mr. Leung.
Honourable Member for that question. As the Honourable Member mentioned, there was a lot of work done before the signing of the entrustment agreement, and there were a number of experts and third party involved, both from government as well as from ourselves. There was significant site investigation done prior to signing the so-called EA2. As the Honourable Member mentioned, however, at Jordan Road, we cannot do site investigation there because of the volume of traffic, and it was inappropriate to close the road to do site investigation. On the golf driving range in West Kowloon, as the Honourable Member mentioned, there was site investigation done after we took possession of the site. With large, complicated projects like the Express Rail Link, there is a lot of work that needs to be done in the initial stages, and there is in the assessment of the cost to complete a contingency. There are matters which would always impact the project that would not be known at the beginning of the project. The contingency is there to take care and address those issues. I would highlight once again that after the tender contracts came back, and this is well highlighted in the IEP report, because of the lower tender prices, the amount of contingency actually increased very significantly. So it is with the use of the contingency allows for unknown factors which may not have been known at the time of entering into the project agreement. I would further add, in terms of the granite, that the presence of the granite is known. It is just the formation of that granite that was perhaps less certain, and the issue was that the granite can be removed. It is a question of time to remove it.
So, Chairman, this is the crux of the problem. According to Mr. Leung, he knew that there had been inadequate site investigation to the extent that throughout Jordan Road there had not been any site investigation on retaining walls at all. And that also applied to the golf driving range. We understand that this is exactly the size of the West Kowloon terminus site now, and this is a key issue. In 2010, when funding was sought with electrical, no site investigation was conducted. And Mr. Leung just now said that he made provisions for the contingencies, so that in case of emergencies, the contingency fees could make up for it. But what about time? You can't catch up with time.
Perhaps I could just comment on the site investigation. There was significant site investigation done, and as I had mentioned last time, the site investigation was in line with government guidelines, and in fact of a higher standard or more.
I'm sorry, Mr. Leung, you're repeating. Previously, you already admitted that site investigation was not conducted until March 2010, and for Jordan Road, no site investigation was never conducted. You just said that you made provisions for contingencies such that you could make up for the feasible uncertainties. But I'm talking about time. In just 5 years, how can you expect that the granite, the 85,000 meters of granite could be excavated?
And for the project, with regards to the timetable, as members are aware and well highlighted in the IEP report, there were a number of third parties that reviewed and looked at the timetable, the program to complete, together with MTR. And all along, the views that we had from the third parties is the timetable is doable but tight.
You're
talking about a funding application with LegCo in 2010, not after that. At that time, what made you believe that when no site investigation was ever done for this large area, you could still deliver in 5 years' time? Do you agree that the whole senior management of the MTRCL and the board of directors had been very incompetent?
Reports that we have seen that adequate site investigation had been done.
How could you say that? You just admitted that in January 2010, when you applied for funding with LegCo, there was no investigation for the two sites I mentioned. How could you say that there had been adequate site investigation? Please allow Mr. Leung to answer your question. Now, these are two important sites, and no investigation had been done. How could you still undertake that project and complete it in 5 years?
Not forgetting that the site investigation, and I apologize if I'm repeating myself here, if the site investigation was of a standard that met government guidelines and a higher standard than across the construction industry. The West Kowloon terminus is 11 hectares. The Jordan Road area is but one part of that, and I believe a relative...
How large is the golf driving range? At least several hectares, right? Mr. Michael Tian, would you please allow him to answer first? He doesn't have this information. That's what I want to say. Well, he can tell us later if he doesn't have the information now. Chairman, I just want to say this. Well, this is your comment, right? I'm saying this to you, Chairman. I think I'm being pragmatic. I am laying out facts that time, but I think that he's deflecting the question. He is shunning the issue, and he's just repeating himself. He did not even admit, and I'm disappointed, that it was negligent at the time, and that's very simple. The information wasn't available then. The information was only available now, and yet he gave the undertaking that the project could be completed. All right, we will consider whether his answer is sufficient.
Could also respond.
Yes, Mr. Leung, please. Anything to add?
Okay.
I would, firstly, the West Kowloon terminus is a very large 11 hectares site. There were 600 boreholes drilled for site investigation on that site, spaced 14.4 meters apart. I would also say that in the Jordan Road area, we have available existing data of the utilities situation under Jordan Road. So when the agreement was, the second entrustment agreement was signed with government, we have existing data with regards to the utility situation under Jordan Road, as well as the site investigations we have done.
What about the golf driving range? You can't tell how large it is, but out of the 11 hectares, at least the driving range would occupy several hectares.
The golf driving range is, of course, in two components. There is a driveway with a parking lot, and there is the driving range itself. as I understand it from the various reports, there was site investigation done in the driveway and the parking lot, although, of course, we were not able to close the driving range before taking...
如果你再有問題，第二輪啦，田北辰議員，我都想。
Please wait for your second round, Mr. Tian, if you have further questions. I want to follow up on site investigation as well. According to Mr. Chan's statement from Highways Department, there are a number of reasons of delay of the XR project. One was to do with the design and site investigation of the project. So on site investigation, how much resources the MTRCL put in? Do you have a rough estimate?
That information to hand, and perhaps I can respond.
Yes, please do so. Next question. Was it possible that, as far as the site investigation was concerned, it was not sufficient, it was not deep enough? What was it possible that led to an error in the estimate?
This is also in the various reports by the IBC and the IEP. My understanding is that there was adequate site investigation done, which includes the depth of the various holes and the boreholes drilled. Those boreholes are drilled 14.4 meters apart. There could be undulation of rocks or different core stones between those 14.4 meters. So there was significant site investigation done, which is in accordance with government's guidelines and even of a higher standard than used in the industry.
Okay.
So if it wasn't negligent, it wasn't inadequate, then in relation to the uncertainties and unexpected circumstances, you should have a good grasp of these difficulties. Then to make way for buffer for these issues. If you had, why is there such a significant delay? Do you understand my question? I mean, if you had a good grasp of these unexpected or unforeseen circumstances, did you implement measures to provide for buffer in the project to avoid significant delays?
As I mentioned, although the ground investigation done is in line with government guidelines and higher than industry standards, with boreholes being 14.4 meters apart, there's unfortunately times when issues with rocks will be missed just because of the rock formation. I think on the schedule, there was a lot of work done with regards to the original schedule and the program to complete. And once again, with the information at hand, the experts were of the view that the program to complete, with the knowledge of the site conditions, was adequate, was doable but tight.
All right. Okay.
Ms. Claudia Mo.
Mr. Leung, in your opening statement, you said the overall completion progress of the project is now, as of today, 74%, i.e. just under 3/4 of completion. Now, this figure is hardly impressive, I'd say. And you did mention towards the end of your statement that there are still challenges in the remaining construction works. I just wonder what might be the largest challenge remaining, question one, that is. And my question number two is, you keep, we keep getting allegations, if not accusations, that the MTRC had withheld information from the government, in particular the Highways Department. And you kept telling us previously that no, whatever information they needed, we would have disclosed. But the problem is, we don't know what we don't know. I mean, one cannot ask questions when one doesn't know what to ask, right? So on this information disclosure business, would you acknowledge that the MTRC had behaved somewhat improperly, if not dishonestly? Question number 2. And my third question is, previously you also acknowledged that when it comes to risk management, you use qualitative assessment for timetables and so on, measuring what you call robustness. And then, of course, you use quantitative assessment for costs and things. Would you now, with hindsight, acknowledge that there were so many incompatibilities between the two? Your overly optimistic approach in the qualitative assessment has ultimately led to your quantitative wrong assessments, right? 3 questions for the time being. Thank you.
For those questions. Firstly, on the challenges which the project continues to face. As the Honourable Member rightly mentioned, the project is 74% complete. The tunnel sections between the West Kowloon terminus and the border with Shenzhen is now over 99% complete, dug through, excavated, with only just around 100 meters of tunnel left to go out of 25+ kilometer twin-track, twin-bore tunnel. The challenges which the project will continue to face, once again, the shortage of labor, particularly in the so-called electrical mechanical, the E&M phase that the project is coming into. This will be a challenge, and of course we will have our measures to try to overcome that particular challenge. Secondly, the erection and construction of the so-called station entrance building, which incorporates the atrium and roof of the structure. That will also be a challenge for the project. And thirdly, the productivity rate in physically building the structure. I mentioned that there has been reasonable progress in terms of the physical building of the structure, but that structure still needs to be completed. So those are some of the challenges going forward with regards to this particular project. The second question on information, once again, there was significant information and amount of information provided to government. This is well highlighted in the independent expert panel, the IEP report, as well as the IBC report. There were not just information provided, there was very regular meeting between government officials and ourselves. On top of that, as highlighted in the IEP and the IBC report, government has the M&V consultant, Jacobs, who were also looking at this whole, the whole project. And in fact, as I mentioned before, during this period, the M&V consultant had themselves undertaken 250 audits. Their findings were reported to government, and there would be follow-on and follow-up of such findings. I think the third question, which really comes back to risk management, the qualitative and the quantitative assessment. The qualitative assessment is a methodology that has worked very well in the past. It has delivered a number of all our previous rail projects. It is a part of the project management systems which we have to follow under the entrustment agreements. The project management systems, as members are aware, was reviewed prior to government and MTR entering into the second entrustment agreement. And in fact, the various reviews comes up with words such as robust, good control, best of breed, and internal and assessments that would suggest that it is of a very high standard. It is based on that I understand government entered into the second entrustment agreement with the governance and processes that were also put into place. So the qualitative assessment is an assessment which, one, has worked well in the past. Secondly, it's part of the processes that we have had and that we are supposed to follow. And thirdly, part of the process that has been reviewed prior to entering into the entrustment agreements and have been well commented on, and in fact have been complemented by the experts involved.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, can I understand that Mr. Leung has practically categorically denied any improper or dishonest conduct when it comes to information disclosure? Is that what you're saying?
Is that what you meant, Mr. Leung?
I would say that at no time was there any intent on the part of MTR to hide or withhold any information. The information as requested was provided. There was a collaborative, cooperative working environment between government departments and ourselves. Those are well borne out in the IBC and the IEP report.
Okay. Right.
There's no such intent, Ms. Mo.
There's no point to ask Mr. Leung whether there's any negligence on the part of himself or the MTRC, right? That is, a futile question. But again, with hindsight, you did say the MTRC had behaved somewhat overly optimistic in the over the entirety of the project, something to that effect. What could have done better, or how you could have done better in any way, in what areas or on what fronts, speaking as of today?
No, I thank you for that question, Honourable Member. As at the last meeting, the over-optimism of the project team led to MTR reporting late the delay. The over-optimism did not lead to the delay. It was the over-optimism led to the late reporting of the delay. The causes of the delay are well highlighted in the various reports, and I will not go into that again.
With due respect, isn't that just a word game?
Honourable Member, what MTR has done in answer to your question is from the reports of the Independent Board Committee, there were a number of recommendations made by the Independent Board Committee. MTR has followed those recommendations and implemented virtually all of the recommendations. Those recommendations, once again well highlighted in the reports, include, one, the establishment of a Capital Works Committee. The Capital Works Committee has now been operating for a number of months. Secondly, it includes enhancement to the reporting mechanism. Those enhancements include the use of so-called traffic lights as well as the use of milestones. Those have all been incorporated in our processes.
I rest.
Next, Mr. Gary Fan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I ask Mr. Leung this? In the last hearing, you stated clearly that you refused to admit that in the case of cost overrun for the XCRL, the MTRCL has tried to cover up anything. You also said that for this entrustment agreement, there is no absolute obligations imposed. That is, the MTRCL must complete the works before August 2015 or to set a ceiling for the project estimate. But then last time in the hearing, when you answered my question, Mr. Leung, you stated clearly that there were no absolute obligations and there's nothing in black and white in the entrustment agreement about that, though. So it's only your own understanding, right? Your own interpretation of the agreement. Now, if the MTRCL believes that the completion date could be revised under the agreement, and then you do not have absolute obligations to complete the works in time, if that's your version, how come last time your predecessor, Mr. J. Walder, in November 2013, in the emergency meeting with the Transport and Housing Bureau, how come Mr. Walder asked the Bureau not to report to the Subcommittee on Railway Matters that there was any delay in the commissioning of the railway? And how come he objected to the administration to inform the public about the delay? Now, you said at the time that the objection was raised because for the deadline, it was in 2015. Before then, you could exert pressure on the contractors to recover the delay. How come the MTRCL would go all the way without regard to cost to achieve the commissioning date in 2015 if, as you put it, Mr. Leung, there are no absolute obligations to complete the works before August? Does it mean that you have indirectly admitted that the MTRCL actually has the duty to complete the works in time? That's my first question, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Leung?
Take our responsibility under the entrustment very, very seriously, and we take all steps to ensure that we meet our obligation under the entrustment agreement. As I mentioned last time, and I think it's well highlighted in the IEP report. This is the Independent Expert Panel report, which is commissioned by government. It is well highlighted in the factual annexure by PricewaterhouseCoopers on the basis that the timetable to complete, as well as the cost to complete, are estimates in the entrustment agreement and subject to change. In fact, the IEP report very clearly sets out what the mechanisms are to adjust the timetable. In the interest of time, Chairman, I will not read out the relevant paragraph. The member mentioned the meeting in November of 2013. I was not personally at that meeting, so I do not know what was said in that meeting. All I have is from our IBC report, which has interviewed all the a number of people who were present at that meeting. As I understand it, in that particular meeting in November 2013 with the previous CEO, the comment from the IBC report, or the comment in the IBC report, was that the previous projects director and the previous CEO were of the view that to keep pressure on the contractors, it is important to keep to that 2015 opening date. That is in accordance with the IBC report. Because I was not in that meeting, I really cannot comment otherwise on what they have said.
Mr. Chairman, the question was not whether you were present at the meeting, but rather the way the MTRCL behaved. It proved that objectively you have the duty to complete the works on time. I think that's circumstantial evidence to that. Let him answer, please.
I mentioned under the entrustment agreement, this is well highlighted in the IEP report. MTR, we have to use our best endeavors, which we have under the entrustment agreement. The timetable and the cost to complete are estimates, which are subject to adjustments in accordance with that entrustment agreement.
He's repeating his answer. My second question is about the 22nd of October. The principal government engineer came. He said that the MTRCL projects team covered up some information. They withheld some information from the Highways Department. Key information it was. That is the analysis in November 2013. That is the works would be delayed till 2016. And then in the Railways Development Office also pointed out in an inquiry that this key information was withheld from the government by the MTRCL. So that's why the government got the wrong assessment that lagging behind of works did not equate a delay in the completion date. So, Mr. Leung, would you agree that you did mislead the highways department? Now, in your witness statement, paragraph 130, you said the MTRC never withheld key information. How would you respond to this serious allegation of the Highways Department? That is, on key information on the progress of the works, you withheld it. How would you respond to what the government representative said at that hearing?
Honourable Member, firstly, as I highlighted, there was at all times full disclosure of information to government and the various departments of government. There were regular meetings, a significant number of regular meetings, as well as the government's so-called M&V consultant, Jacobs, were also auditing and doing a significant body of work based on the information and in addition to the information which we have given. This disclosure of information and following the requirements under the entrustment agreement, I believe, are well highlighted in both the IBC and the IEP report. Once again, I understand that the statement which Mr. KK Lau and Mr. Henry Chang made was referring to an event back in November of 2013. As I have responded to another honourable member's question on this particular matter, at that time, the project team was still awaiting a program from the contractors. This was the 810A contractor on whether the minimum operating requirement, the so-called MOR, was achievable or not. This request for a program from the contractor of 810A, as I understand it, was also a request from the various members of government. So at that time, in November 2013, the event that has been highlighted, the projects team was still awaiting for a program from the contractor to see whether the program, the revised or the program to complete can be achieved or not.
Chairman, my question for him is whether he had withheld information, and he has now shunned the responsibility and put the blame on contractors. Well, I don't have much time left. I want to ask my third question in relation to the tight time frame for advance works, leading to delays in the three contracts in relation to West Kowloon Terminus 810A, 810B, and 811A. There was a revision to the design, and according to a written response after the hearing, you refused to disclose the number of revisions made because in fact, according to information, there had been 13,513 revisions involving typos and minor changes. I'd like to know from Mr. Leung, on what basis would you say that the 13,000 plus revisions were all minor changes? My question is this. It has a cumulative effect. 13,000 minor changes. Would it lead to even more major revisions, which led to a delay or lagging behind, as the government put it, such that despite the DRMs, you were not able to catch up with the progress? We're talking about 13,000 revisions. Mr. Leung.
As highlighted in the IEP report, this is on paragraph 104 of the IEP report. That report does highlight that as by June of 2013, there were 13,513 revised drawings. As also highlighted in the IEP report and in our response to a similar question last time, many of these amendments in drawings would be of a minor nature. I would firstly perhaps also say that it is not uncommon for tenders, for contracts to be tendered once they have reached a certain maturity in design. In the case of 810A, the contract that the Honourable Member mentioned, that particular contract had reached a maturity of design that allowed it to be tendered. It is also not uncommon for, in these very complicated projects, for there to be design adjustments after the contract has been tendered out. The Honourable Member mentioned the 13,513 drawings were part of these design adjustments. A number of these design adjustments would have been relatively minor in nature. Some of these design adjustments related to the construction difficulties which were being faced. For instance, the ground conditions. Highlighted in paragraph 104 of the IEP report as some of these revised drawings would be additional H-piles. Additional H-piles were required because of the difficult ground conditions, and particularly as they pertain, in one case, to a diaphragm wall on the western part of the West Kowloon site. A third cause of the design changes could be changes requested by third parties. So there are a number of causes for these design changes. I would, however, say that many of these design changes, once again, were of a minor nature. A number of these design changes were the result of difficulties encountered during construction. And thirdly, some of these design changes were also the result of third-party requests. Thank you, Chairman.
I think the member's question is this. Because of the significant number of changes or revisions, would that lead to a cumulative effect leading to a major cost of the delay?
In a number of cases, the design changes were of a minor nature. Other changes were the result of construction difficulties. The construction difficulties may have caused the delays or changes in schedule, but those construction difficulties then resulted and required different and amended or adjusted design. And thirdly, there could have been design changes from third parties. So it is actually a complicated interaction and interplay of many factors when one looks at these design changes as well as the difficulties encountered in construction.
Let me ask a follow-up question. As we all know, your predecessor, the former CEO of MTRCL, in November 2013 said to the Secretary that he insisted that the Secretary should not be frank with the electricals panel and the public in informing us of the delay for the purpose of exerting pressure on contractors. So, not to be frank to the subcommittee of electrical. Do you agree as a member of the senior management?
Was there ever any intention to withhold any information from government or the Legislative Council? Once again, I was not at that meeting when in November 2013.
Yes, I know that you weren't there. I just want to know from you, from your previous replies, that you had no knowledge of this. But in retrospect, would you agree to this approach?
My response would be that it is never and will never be MTR's intention to withhold any information from government or the Legislative Council.
Perhaps we'll take a short break now. 15-minute break. And then two members have indicated they wish to ask questions, Mr. Lee Cheuk-yen and Mr. Tan Ka-pyo. Thank you. 15 minutes.